One of the things that married couples fight over most often is money and finances. In fact, a recent study found that this topic was the #1 cause of disagreements between married spouses. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to resolve arguments over money with your spouse. And I am, of course, the one and only Brad Browning. I'm a relationship and divorce coach from Vancouver, Canada. And you guys can find more about me and my best-selling Mend the Marriage program just by heading over to my website, marriageguy.com. So let's talk about the 5 things that you can and should be doing to reduce the amount of conflict that you and your spouse are having over your finances. So #1, keep your cool. Now, I know this is hardly groundbreaking, right? But staying calm and cool during any discussions with your partner about money is absolutely critical. So if you find that things are getting heated, it's best to just step away, shut down the conversation, at least until you can both return with cooler heads and start again, have a real conversation once you're calmed down a bit. #2, be open and be transparent. It's really important to maintain an open and transparent policy when it comes to your finances. Keeping secrets, failing to share the details of your spending, those kinds of things are going to undermine the trust, and they're going to lead to a toxic environment in your marriage in general. And that's why, of course, it's always best to remain transparent and ensure that you're both on the same page when it comes to your finances. #3, do it together. Now, this one ties into my last point. If only one of you guys, if only one partner is familiar with the bank accounts and the details of your finances in general, then issues are a lot more likely to arise. So, instead of just putting yourself or just your spouse in charge of paying bills and balancing accounts, do it together and make sure that both you and your partner are both involved and both understand your financial situation. Simply put, when both you and your spouse are informed about your finances, it's just a lot easier to see eye to eye. You can talk about upcoming large purchases, you can prioritize debts to pay off, build a budget together. And that budget point brings me to my next point, which is that you need to create and agree to a budget. Now, this is arguably the single best way to avoid arguments over money with your spouse. Setting a budget, it means working out your monthly income, your mandatory expenditures like rent, your debt repayments, and basically just figuring out what's left over to spend on non-essentials. Now, this is especially important if one spouse tends to be the spender while the other is more of a saver and takes issue with what they see as their partner's overspending. And when you're making this budget, it's important that you do it together with your spouse and that you agree on what I like to call a discretionary spending limit. And what that means essentially is that you and your spouse, you come up with a monetary figure that each of you is allowed to spend without having to ask the other partner first. So, for instance, maybe both you and your spouse agree that you can spend up to $100 without having to check with one another in advance of a purchase. So, that way then your wife can go ahead and buy that $80 pair of shoes she's craving when they're on sale, and you can invest in a round of golf that's going to cost you $90. And neither of those things are going to require you to get your partner's, okay first. And of course, any purchases over that set amount that you agree on, those would require you to call up your spouse and get their approval before you make the purchase. Now, one reason why budgets are so helpful when it comes to avoiding arguments over finances is because they show to your spouse that you're being considerate of their opinions and their spending priorities. And it also helps to keep both parties accountable to the budget that you've agreed to. And of course, that does mean that it's critical that once you and your partner do agree on a budget, that you both stick to it. And #5, last but not least, replace the word you with I. Now, if you've seen some of my other videos here on YouTube, then you'll know that this is a tactic that I recommend more generally when it comes to preventing or diffusing arguments. And by using the word I instead of you, you're essentially removing the blame from your statements. So for example, instead of saying, "You never pay the bills on time," you can say something like, "I think we should focus on paying our bills on time. Can I help you with that?" Or, maybe instead of accusing your spouse of overspending by saying things like, "You always spend way too much money on, going out for drinks with your friends," you can instead choose to phrase it, more along the lines of, "I noticed you've been spending quite a lot on going out for drinks with your friends. Do you think we can agree on a weekly limit for that kind of spending?" And as you can see from those examples, replacing the word you with I, it really just shifts the statement from being an accusation into something more empathetic and less confrontational. And I also recommend adding possible solutions or suggestions to the end of your statement, like I did in the examples below, so that you're offering some potential solution to the problem rather than just simply throwing out a blatant complaint. All right, that's 5 simple things that you can do to help prevent arguments about money with your spouse. And I know that many of you out there watching this video are still going to have questions about your specific marriage challenges and how to handle them. So as always, guys, please feel free to leave those questions in the comments section below the video, and I will get back to you personally in the next couple of days. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel first before you leave your questions and suggestions in the comments. And for more proven marriage-saving tips and techniques, check out the full-length free video on my website, marriageguy.com. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.